he whispered to the chief's daughter. "Don't say a word or we all die." The sun hung low over the dusty horizon, painting the small frontier town in shades of orange and gold. The air smelled faintly of iron and sand, mixed with the mechanical hum of strange devices scattered across the settlement. It was a place where the old world of cowboys met the new, where horse-drawn wagons shared the streets with hovering carts, and windmills powered not just water but small energy grids. Elias Crow rode slowly into the town on his black horse, the animal's hooves stirring up soft clouds of dust. His wide-brimmed hat shadowed a face weathered by years of travel and observation. He carried no gun, only a small satchel with tools, sensors, and maps. People whispered as he passed, giving cautious glances. A lone cowboy in a strange town always drew attention, but Elias was used to it. He was used to being watched. At the edge of the town, just beyond the wooden fences, lay the tribal settlement of Chief Tarek's people. Unlike the rest of the frontier town, this settlement maintained traditions older than the metal structures and blinking lights of progress. Children ran barefoot over dusty paths, women tended to small gardens, and men repaired tools and wagons. Yet beneath the calm surface, a strange tension lingered, something Elias could sense even before he reached the gates. Isla, the chief's daughter, sat near the edge of the settlement, her long hair catching the golden light as she traced patterns in the dirt with a stick. She had a gift, one few understood. She could hear vibrations, subtle shifts in the land and air that told her things no one else could sense. Today those vibrations were unusual, almost threatening. She paused, tilting her head as if listening to a sound only she could hear. Elias noticed her immediately. She wasn't like the other villagers. There was focus in her eyes, a quiet intelligence that made him careful with his words. He dismounted from his horse and approached slowly, letting the animal settle in the soft dirt. "Chief's daughter," he said quietly, his voice calm but urgent, "I need a moment of your time." Isla looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she observed him, as if measuring whether he posed a threat. Finally, she nodded and followed him a short distance away, where the sound of people faded into the background. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," Elias began, lowering his voice even further. "But you need to stay silent. Don't say a word, or we all die." Isla blinked. Her heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from the seriousness in his tone. She had sensed danger, yes, but hearing it spoken aloud gave it a new weight. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because I've seen what happens when people speak without understanding," Elias said. He pulled out a small device from his satchel. It glowed faintly, casting a pale blue light over his hands. "There's something beneath this land, something old and powerful. It reacts to sound. Even the smallest word can trigger it." Isla's eyes widened. She had heard stories from the elders, legends of the old world of buried machines left behind by those who came before, machines that were dangerous, unpredictable, and deadly if disturbed. Could this stranger really know about them? "Show me," she said finally, her curiosity outweighing her caution. Elias nodded and led her to a small clearing at the edge of the settlement. Here the ground was cracked and dry, with faint lines etched into the dirt like the veins of a leaf. He knelt and pressed the device to the earth. It hummed softly, vibrating in a way that made the hairs on their arms stand. "Feel that?" he asked. "It's alive in a way." "Animal, it's something else." And a response to sound. Isla knelt beside him, placing her hands gently on the ground. She closed her eyes and focused, letting her gift guide her. Vibrations flowed up through her fingers, subtle but distinct. There was a rhythm, like a heartbeat, but faster, anxious, agitated. "It's nervous," she whispered. "Yes," Elias said, "and if anyone speaks carelessly, it could get worse. That's why I need your help. You can hear it. You understand it. Others can't. If you stay quiet, we have a chance to study it, maybe even stop it from causing harm." Isla looked around the clearing, imagining the settlement full of voices, laughter, and daily chatter. Could silence really protect them all? It seemed impossible, yet the vibrations she felt under her hands confirmed Elias's warning. "All right," she said finally. "I'll stay silent. How will I tell anyone else what's happening?" Elias shook his head. "You won't. Not yet. You'll need to observe to guide me without revealing the danger. We can't risk panic." For a moment they both sat in silence, listening to the subtle hum of the earth beneath them. Even the wind seemed cautious, moving through the sparse trees with quiet care. After a while, Elias spoke again. "I need to see the settlement's maps, the old legends. Anything that tells us what might be under the ground. And you'll need to stay with me. closely. One word, one sound, and he didn't finish the sentence, but Isla understood. The threat was real. She led him to the chief's hut, where old scrolls and maps were stored. Carefully, she unrolled a series of parchments, pointing to areas marked with strange symbols. These were places of past disturbances, of unusual sounds reported by previous generations. Some had been dismissed as superstition. Others had simply vanished from memory. This one, she said, pointing to a symbol that looked like concentric circles radiating outward. The elders called it the sleeping machine. They said it wakes if humans disturb it carelessly. Elias studied it closely. This is exactly what I feared. It's dormant, yes, but unstable, and it can't distinguish between threat and curiosity. That's why silence matters. That's why you mustn't speak, even to warn someone. Isla swallowed hard. She had never felt such responsibility. To protect the tribe, she had to remain invisible in her warning, unseen and unheard. Her silence would be a shield, her presence a guide. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the room, they began to plan. Elias outlined his observations, and Ayla traced the vibrations she felt under her hands onto the maps with careful marks. Together they began to connect dots, past incidents, underground tunnels, and strange energy readings. Hours passed like minutes. The outside world continued its noisy routine, unaware of the delicate balance being maintained in this quiet room. Children's laughter, the clatter of tools, and the hum of machines could all trigger the sleeping machine if handled carelessly. The weight of silence pressed heavily on Ayla's shoulders, but she did not complain. By the time the stars appeared in the sky, Elias and Ayla had formed a plan for the next day. They would inspect the vibration points, gather more data, and ensure that the tribe remained safe, all without alerting anyone to the danger beneath their feet. Elias looked at Ayla, a rare smile touching his lips. "You're stronger than you know," he said quietly. "Your silence is more powerful than any words we could speak." Ayla nodded, feeling a mix of fear and pride. She understood now that sometimes the greatest courage was not in speaking or fighting, but in listening, observing, and trusting that quiet action could save lives. As they left the hut returning to the edge of the settlement, the town's lights flickered gently in the distance. The wind whispered through the trees, and beneath their feet, deep underground, something stirred, soft, subtle, alive. But for now, thanks to Elias and the chief's daughter, silence reigned, holding back the unknown. And as Elias whispered once more to Ayla, so quietly that only she could hear, "Don't say a word, or we all die." Ayla's eyes met his, steady and calm. She nodded. She understood, and she would not speak. The next morning, the frontier town awoke under a soft golden light. Dust shimmered in the sun, and the distant hills looked calm, almost peaceful. Yet beneath the surface, the ground hummed faintly, like the heartbeat of something vast and hidden. Elias Crow and Ayla moved carefully through the settlement, stepping lightly on the dry earth. Each sound they made seemed magnified, echoing in their own ears. "We have to be careful," Elias said, his eyes scanning the ground. "Every step, every word matters." Ayla nodded, her senses alert. The vibrations were stronger than yesterday, sharper, as if the land itself was watching. She pressed her fingers to the ground, feeling the rhythms flow beneath her skin. She could tell that something ancient had awakened, something that had been dormant for centuries, waiting for the careless sound of humans to stir it. Their first stop was the outskirts of the tribal settlement, near the old mines abandoned long ago. The entrance was blocked by rubble, but sensors in Elias's satchel detected faint energy patterns beneath the rocks. "This is it," Elias whispered. "The sleeping machine's network runs beneath these mines. We need to map it carefully without disturbing it." Ayla traced the vibrations with her hands, pointing out weak points where energy seemed unstable. "It reacts to pressure too," she said. "Not just sound. We have to move slowly and quietly." Elias admired her focus. "You have a gift, Ayla. You hear what no one else can. If anyone knew, they'd call it magic." She smiled faintly. "I don't need magic. I just listen." Together, they carefully climbed over rocks and debris, marking vibration points on a map with chalk. They worked in silence, understanding that even the smallest noise could trigger the system. Birds flew overhead, startled by their presence, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Suddenly, a faint hum rose from beneath the ground. It wasn't loud, but it carried a strange resonance, like a musical note stretched across the earth. Isla stiffened, pressing her hand against the dirt. "It's waking," she whispered. Elias crouched beside her. "Stay calm. Don't speak. Just guide me." Isla nodded, letting the vibrations guide her movements. They followed the subtle shifts, careful to avoid cracks and weak points. The map in Elias's hand was slowly filling with marks, connecting patterns of energy that no one had understood before. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, turning the dust into golden clouds. The town continued its routine, unaware of the danger beneath their feet. Children laughed as they chased each other between wagons. Farmers called to each other across fields. Horses neighed. Each sound made the ground beneath Elias and Ayla pulse more sharply, as if reminding them of the fragile balance they were keeping. Elias paused, examining the map. "We need more information. The energy points are connected in ways I didn't expect. Some of these patterns are very old, maybe hundreds of years. This isn't just a machine. It's a system, almost alive in its design." Isla pressed her fingers to the map, tracing the lines. "It responds to human patterns. Movement, speech, even thought, maybe. It's listening in ways we don't fully understand. That's why it's dangerous. Not because it wants to hurt anyone, but because it reacts." Elias nodded slowly. "Exactly. And if the tribe or the town makes a sound in the wrong place," his voice trailed off, but Ayla knew what he meant. They moved closer to the town center, where strange devices hummed near the energy wells. These devices had been left by old explorers and engineers, and they acted as a bridge between the sleeping machine and the surface. If handled incorrectly, they could amplify the vibrations, creating a chain reaction. Isla knelt beside one device, her fingers hovering above its glowing panel. The hum beneath her fingertips grew stronger, almost like a warning. She closed her eyes, letting her senses guide her. The device pulsed under her touch, a subtle rhythm matching the vibration in the earth. Elias watched quietly. "Careful. Don't touch it too long. Just read it, then step back." She nodded, reading the patterns. "It's like it's asking us a question." "But I don't know the language." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe we don't need to speak the language. Maybe we just need to listen." As they worked, a group of townsfolk approached, unaware of the danger. One man called out, laughing, trying to get the attention of a friend. The ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. Isla froze, her heart racing. She pressed her hand to the earth and sent a gentle vibration back, a silent warning. The tremor stopped, and the man's voice faded into the background. Elias nodded. "Good work. That's the hardest part, controlling the reactions without anyone knowing." By midday, they had mapped several key points, including weak zones where energy spikes could occur. The pattern suggested that the sleeping machine was part of a larger network, stretching far beyond the town and the tribal settlement. It was older than anyone could imagine, and it seemed to interact with humans in ways that were both mysterious and precise. Isla looked at the map, tracing the lines with her finger. "It's like a puzzle. And if we get one piece wrong, it could wake fully." Elias nodded grimly. That's why silence matters more than anything. Every person in the settlement, every sound, every step, it all counts. As they worked, the chief's daughter shared stories from the elders about strange incidents in the past, farmers disappearing, miners falling silent for days, strange lights in the hills. Some incidents had been blamed on superstition or wild animals, but now Isla realized they were connected to the same system they were studying. "This is why the elders spoke in riddles," she said. "They knew about this. They just couldn't explain it to anyone, not in words. They had to protect the tribe with stories." Elias nodded. Stories are the first line of defense when knowledge is too dangerous for words. By late afternoon, they paused to rest. The sun was lower, casting long shadows across the dusty town. Children ran past, unaware of the silent guardians watching over them. Horses grazed quietly, and the wind whispered through the hills. The vibrations beneath Isla's hands were steady now, a calm rhythm that suggested the system was observing, but not yet agitated. Elias looked at her, his expression serious. "Tomorrow, we'll explore the tunnels beneath the old mines. That's where the core of the system is. We'll need to move even more carefully there." One wrong step. One word, Isla understood. Silence would not just protect her and Elias, it would protect everyone in the settlement. She felt the weight of the responsibility, but also a strange sense of pride. She was part of something larger, something ancient, and her gift was the key to keeping it safe. As the evening came, they returned to the edge of the settlement, careful not to alert anyone. They could hear laughter from the town square, the clatter of tools and the soft hum of machines, but none of it disturbed the pattern they had established. The vibrations beneath the ground were calm, almost as if the sleeping machine had recognized them as allies rather than intruders. Elias turned to Ayla. "You did well today. You kept calm when it mattered most. That's not easy. Most people would panic." Ayla smiled faintly. "I just listened." "That's all I can do." Elias nodded. "And that is enough. Sometimes the greatest power is quiet. Sometimes silence is what saves lives." The stars began to appear in the sky, twinkling like tiny lanterns over the frontier. The wind carried the faint hum of the hills, a reminder that beneath the surface something ancient and powerful was still awake, watching, listening, waiting. But for now, thanks to Elias and the chief's daughter, the town and the settlement remained safe. And as Elias whispered once more to Ayla, so softly that only she could hear, "Don't say a word, or we all die." Ayla nodded, steady and calm. She understood that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and perhaps new dangers. But for now, silence was their shield, and vigilance their guide. Together, they had begun to unravel the mystery of the sleeping machine, and the frontier, though still quiet and dusty, held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. The night had fallen over the frontier town, painting the desert hills in deep blue shadows. Stars sparkled faintly like distant lanterns scattered across the sky, and the air was cool, carrying the faint scent of sand and metal. Elias Crow and Ayla stood at the edge of the tribal settlement, maps spread across a rock and a soft glow from Elias's sensors illuminating their faces. Tomorrow, they would enter the tunnels beneath the old mines, but tonight was for planning. Ayla traced the vibration lines with her finger, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's stronger than I thought," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible even to Elias. "The machine... It's not just beneath the mines. Its network spreads farther than we can see. It listens everywhere." Elias nodded, his expression serious. "Yes. And if the chief doesn't understand, the tribe won't either. We need him on our side. But we can't risk telling him too much. Not yet." Ayla looked up, her dark eyes steady. "He trusts me, though. Maybe I can help him understand without words, somehow." Elias smiled faintly. "You already have. Your silence has guided me more than any words could." The next morning, the chief, Tarek, arrived at the meeting place. His presence commanded attention. He was tall and strong, with deep-set eyes that missed nothing. The tribe gathered around, sensing the seriousness in the air, though they did not yet know why. Elias stepped forward cautiously. "Chief Tarek," he said, "I need your guidance, and your permission to explore beneath the mines." The chief raised an eyebrow, his voice calm but firm. "Why would I allow a stranger to disturb old ground that has been left untouched for generations?" Elias swallowed. "Because the ground itself is restless. Beneath it lies something powerful, something that responds to our actions. It listens, it feels, it reacts, and if we are careless, it could awaken fully. You have the ability to help protect your people. We need your trust and your silence." Tarek's gaze shifted to Ayla, his daughter. Her face was calm, determined, and yet a subtle tension lingered. She did not speak, but her eyes conveyed understanding. The chief studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You speak in riddles," he said, his voice low, "but I trust my daughter. If she remains silent, then I will follow her lead." Elias allowed himself a small sigh of relief. This was the first step. Convincing the chief meant the tribe could act carefully, without panic. They began their journey toward the old mines, moving quietly through the hills. The path was rocky, uneven, and strewn with old debris from past miners. Elias carried his sensors, and Ayla's hands hovered over the ground, feeling the faint tremors beneath them. Each step had to be measured. Every whisper of wind, every sound of shifting rocks sent vibrations through the earth. As they approached the tunnel entrances, the vibrations grew stronger, more distinct. Ayla pressed her fingers to the soil, closing her eyes. "It's awake," she said, her voice a soft breath. "But it's calm, for now. It's watching us." Elias nodded. "That's a good sign. It recognizes our careful approach." Inside the tunnel, the air was cool and dry. The walls glimmered faintly with minerals, reflecting the light from Elias's devices. The vibrations beneath their feet were like a low hum, pulsing rhythmically. Ayla traced the vibrations along the walls, noticing patterns that resembled circuits or pathways. "It's a network," she whispered. all connected. Like it's alive in its own way. It feels curious. Elias stepped closer, scanning the walls with a handheld device. The readings confirmed her observations. Yes, and it reacts to attention. It's not hostile, it's intelligent, but fragile. One wrong action, one careless sound, and it could misinterpret us. Isla considered the patterns, noticing something new. Small pulses of energy moved like waves, converging at points deeper in the tunnel. She pointed silently, guiding Elias. Together they followed the pulses, careful to avoid any cracks or loose stones. Hours passed, and they discovered the core of the network. The vibrations were strongest here, like the heartbeat of the sleeping machine. Elias placed his device on the ground, and it began to translate the energy patterns into visible lines of light. The network sprawled beneath the land, intricate and immense, stretching beyond the settlement and into the hills. Isla pressed her hand to the ground. The core seemed to respond to her presence, pulsing in gentle rhythms. She could sense the machine's curiosity, its awareness. It was not evil. It was ancient, observant, and powerful. Elias whispered, "It's learning from us, observing us. We can communicate without words." Isla nodded. She guided Elias through the network, showing him the safest paths, the weak points to avoid. They moved slowly, carefully, each step deliberate. The vibrations were like a language she understood, a conversation without sound. But above ground, not everyone was as careful. Some townsfolk had begun to gather near the mine entrances, curious about the activities. The vibration shifted, subtle but noticeable. Isla's heart raced. She pressed her fingers to the ground, sending gentle waves back, a silent warning. The town's curiosity was a threat if it became noise. Elias looked at her, concern in his eyes. "We need to ensure the tribe and the town remain calm. One sound from them could trigger the network's defensive measures." Isla understood. Her role was more than guiding Elias. It was protecting everyone through quiet action. Every gesture, every breath had to be precise. Later, they returned to the settlement to consult with Chief Tarek. Isla guided him through the tunnel's layout using symbols and vibrations, careful not to speak of danger in words. The chief listened, silent, absorbing the meaning. He realized the gravity of the situation. "It is like nothing I have known," Tarek said at last. "The earth itself speaks, and we must listen. My people will trust you, Elias. And my daughter. She will guide them." Elias nodded. "Thank you. Your trust is everything. Together we can prevent harm." But silence must remain. No words, no warnings in speech. The machine only understands stillness and care. Tarek's expression was grave. "Then it is settled. My people will follow the guidance of the chief's daughter. She will speak through action and not words." The night fell again, and the town settled into its quiet rhythm. Vibrations beneath the ground pulsed softly, almost content. Isla lay on the hilltop, watching the stars. She felt the hum of the sleeping machine beneath her fingers, a connection she could not fully explain. It was like a dialogue of energy, a silent understanding. Elias joined her, sitting beside her in quiet companionship. "Tomorrow we'll explore deeper," he said. "We may find the source, the beginning of this network, and we'll need to move carefully. Every step, every breath counts."
Isla nodded. "I understand. I will not speak."
"I will listen." Elias smiled faintly. "Your silence is stronger than any weapon, and sometimes it is the only way to protect the people we care about." The wind carried a soft hum across the desert, blending with the vibrations beneath the earth. The sleeping machine seemed to recognize their careful approach, its pulses steady and curious. Above them, the town slept, unaware of the silent guardians keeping it safe. And once more Elias whispered, so quietly that only Ayla could hear, "Don't say a word, or we all die." Ayla's eyes met his, calm and determined. She nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and the quiet strength it gave her. In the silence, she felt a connection to the earth, to the network beneath it, and to the people she was protecting. The frontier held its breath. Tomorrow, deeper secrets awaited. But tonight, through careful silence, the tribe, the town, and the hidden machine all rested in cautious harmony. The morning sun rose slowly over the frontier town, spilling gold and orange across the dusty streets. A gentle wind carried the faint scent of sage and earth, mixing with the metallic hum of old machines. For Elias Crow and Isla, the day held a weight unlike any they had felt before. Today they would reach the core of the sleeping machine and ensure that its ancient network was calm. They moved quietly, following the careful path they had mapped through the tunnels beneath the old mines. Isla's fingers hovered above the ground, reading the subtle pulses that traveled like a heartbeat beneath her feet. The vibrations were stronger than yesterday, but steady, curious, not hostile. "Keep close," Elias whispered. "Every step counts. Every breath matters." Isla nodded, her heartbeat steadily, not from fear, but from awareness. She understood that silence now was more than a precaution. It was a responsibility. She guided Elias through the narrow passages, avoiding weak spots and areas of unstable energy. The deeper they went, the more intricate the network became. Lines of energy pulsed beneath the walls, crisscrossing and converging in a way that suggested intelligence, almost as if the system were alive and observing them. The hum grew louder, not dangerous but insistent, a reminder that the sleeping machine was aware of their presence. At last, they reached the heart of the network. The chamber was vast, larger than any mine tunnel above. Walls shimmered with glowing lines, spreading out like veins of light, connecting every part of the underground system. In the center, the core pulsed rhythmically, sending vibrations through the floor and walls. Isla knelt, placing her hands on the ground. She closed her eyes and felt the energy move through her. It was like a conversation without words, a rhythm of curiosity, caution, and intelligence. She could sense that the core recognized her, understood her quiet guidance. Elias observed her closely. "It's learning from you," he whispered. "It's not hostile.
It only reacts.
And it's trying to understand us." Isla guided Elias through a careful mapping of the core. Every pulse, every line of energy was traced, recorded, and understood. They worked methodically, aware that one wrong step could disturb the balance. The vibrations beneath her hands were steady, but she felt the weight of the machine's awareness, watching, testing, responding. Hours passed. The town above remained calm, unaware of the delicate dance taking place below. Children played, animals grazed, and machines hummed softly. Each sound above ground sent ripples through the network, but Isla's guidance kept the core in a calm, stable rhythm. "Almost there," Elias said quietly. "One more path to trace, one final connection." They moved toward the far end of the chamber, where the lines of energy converged into a narrow tunnel. Isla placed her hands on the ground, sensing the rhythm of the core. It was curious, almost expectant. She guided Elias carefully along the tunnel, marking the lines and noting weak points. At last, they reached a chamber smaller than the main core, but filled with a soft, warm light. The vibrations here were strong, focused, and the energy pulsed like a heartbeat. Isla realized that this was the origin, the central node that controlled the network beneath the frontier. Elias knelt beside her, watching the glowing patterns. "This is it," he said. "The source. If we can stabilize this node, the entire system will calm. But it must be done with care and silence." Ayla pressed her hands to the floor, closing her eyes. She felt the rhythm, the pulse of energy, and slowly, carefully, she sent back waves of calm. The core responded, its vibrations steadying like a giant breathing slowly after a long sleep. Minutes passed, each one stretching like an eternity. Above them, the town went about its day, unaware that the fate of the settlement depended on every silent breath. And below, the core of the sleeping machine learned to trust the quiet, to recognize careful guidance instead of chaos. Elias watched in awe. "It's responding. It's stabilizing." "Your silence. It's more powerful than anything I've ever seen." Isla smiled faintly, her eyes still closed. "It listens to those who understand. And it feels respect." As the vibration softened to a gentle hum, Elias traced the paths on his map one final time. "We've done it," he whispered. "The network is calm. The core is stable. If anyone above makes noise now, it won't disturb the system. It trusts the town, the tribe, because of our care." They spent the rest of the day walking carefully back through the tunnels, marking the safest paths and weak points for future awareness. Isla's hands brushed lightly against the ground, feeling the calm energy pulse steadily beneath her. Each step, each gesture, reinforced the network's trust. By the time they emerged from the tunnels, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows over the desert hills. The town and the tribal settlement were quiet, almost serene. Children played softly, and the hum of machines blended harmoniously with the wind. The sleeping machine remained calm. Its presence felt but not feared. Chief Tarek was waiting at the edge of the settlement, his expression solemn but calm. He studied his daughter and Elias carefully, sensing that something profound had occurred. "You have returned," he said quietly, "and the ground beneath us, it is still, Isla nodded, her hands resting at her sides. She had not spoken a word, but her eyes conveyed understanding, relief, and quiet pride. Elias stepped forward. Yes, Chief. The network is calm, the core is stable. The town and your people are safe, thanks to her guidance. Tarek's eyes softened as he looked at his daughter. He understood now the weight she had carried, the responsibility of silence that had protected everyone. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You have done what many could not, he said. Your silence has saved us all. The land, the town, and our people, they are safe because of you. Isla smiled faintly, looking toward Elias. He gave her a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of her courage. Together, they had faced the unknown, and together, they had protected the frontier without a single word spoken aloud. As the sun set, painting the horizon in shades of gold and red, the town settled into quiet harmony. The sleeping machine pulsed softly beneath the earth, a gentle, steady rhythm that spoke of trust and understanding. It was no longer a threat, no longer a mystery to fear. It had become a part of the frontier, integrated silently into the life above. Elias and Ayla walked to the edge of the settlement, watching the stars appear one by one in the sky. The wind carried a soft hum blending with the distant vibrations of the network beneath their feet. It was a reminder that some things, no matter how ancient or powerful, could be respected and understood without a single word. Elias turned to Ayla, his voice barely above a whisper. Don't say a word, or we all die. Isla's eyes met his, steady and calm. She nodded. She understood. Silence had saved them all. And sometimes, she realized, the greatest power was not in speaking, not in shouting, not in warning, but in listening, observing, and acting with quiet care. The frontier stretched before them, vast and dusty, yet alive with possibility. And beneath it, the sleeping machine pulsed gently, a silent guardian, a reminder that, even in a world of chaos, careful attention, courage, and quiet could protect everything they loved. As night settled fully over the hills, Elias and Isla stood together, knowing that the frontier, the town, and the tribe were safe, and in the calm, quiet darkness, they understood a truth older than the desert itself. Sometimes silence is the loudest, strongest force of all.